today's speaker, my friend, as well as one of the esteemed colleague at Visva-Bharati, none other than Professor Saumya Chakrabarti, Department of Economics and Politics, Visva-Bharati. Today he is going to deliver his speech on the condition of the informal sectors in India and some post-COVID exigencies, a Gandhian perspective. As you know, 3 days national webinar we have organized, and today is the third day, fourth session. In this fourth session, we have with us our Professor Saumya Chakrabarti, who is going to deliver. So though he does not require any formal introduction, still, as a part of decorum, as a part of courtesy, being host, this is our duty to introduce our honorable speaker before the floor. So let me say a few words. I'm not going to say all about his CV and other things. So Professor Saumya Chakrabarti is a professor of economics and politics at Visva-Bharati University, Shantiniketan, India. He has also taught at St. Xavier's College, University of Calcutta, and Presidency University. Professor Chakrabarti has been a visiting fellow at Brown University, USA. He has published in journals like Cambridge Journal of Economics, Review of Radical Political Economics, Economics and Labor Relations Review, Economics and Political Weekly, Indian Journal of Agricultural Economics, among others, and has written books published by Prentice Hall and Oxford University Press. He has traveled across several countries of the global south and north and has regularly contributed in popular journals and vernacular dailies. Now, like a teacher, it is quite expected that he will impart his expertise in different class of courses, that is UG, PG, MPhil, PhD. He has in his credits on an average 10 dissertations of each course, right from PG, MPhil, and PhD to his credit. And I'm not going to talk about his educational background all through, but professional details. He has started his career at Visva-Bharati 1st September 2005 as senior lecturer, thereafter reader, thereafter associate professor, and from 1st September 2015, we are lucky enough to get him as professor of economics. And before joining at Visva-Bharati, since 1st September 2000, he was lecturer in economics at St. Xavier's College. And his particular domain he is teaching, that is development economics in PG level, macroeconomics UG level, political economy or development PG optional, development macroeconomics PG optional, and development economics MPhil PhD coursework and other things. Now, administrative responsibilities he has carried out at Visva-Bharati, like Vice Principal Visva-Bhavan, and also Honorary Director, Agroeconomic Research Center, Ministry of Agriculture, Government of India, Visva-Bharati, and member, Admission Cell, Admission Committee, Examination Related Confidential Committee, and various capacities. And academic activities beyond Visva-Bharati, he was guest faculty, Economics Department, Calcutta University, guest faculty for Macroeconomics, Presidency University, and visiting fellow, Watson Institute, Brown University, USA. In addition to this, he has more than 40 prestigious publications like book, journal articles, book chapters from renowned publishers. So this is a kind of indicative or a glimpse of his wide academic experience. And today we are lucky enough that just few days back when I called him, Somoda, we like to invite you as one of the speaker on this 1 week Gandhi webinar. So he is very kind enough, without future and past thinking. He said, Nimaida, okay, I will agree as you are inviting me. So today we are having Professor Saumya Chakrabarti. He will enlighten us about the Gandhi's thought, particularly on the condition of informal sectors in India and some post-COVID exigencies, a Gandhian perspective. So as instructed by UGC, Visva-Bharati University Administration is very keen to organize these 5 sessions national webinar, and we are lucky enough on behalf of the Visva-Bharati Library Network that University Administration has a great confidence on us. They are advising us and allowing us to convene this event before you all. Now, before handing over the floor to Professor Chakrabarti, let me request, like earlier occasions, that please mute your audio and video to offer a congenial environment so that Professor Chakrabarti will be reachable to all of us and a video recording will be done smoothly. If you have any questions, just put it to your chat box. We will pick up your questions. And if time permit, we will bring your questions to speaker and speaker will be kind enough to clarify as far as his capacity permits. And of course, don't mute, don't unmute your audio and video at any point of time unless we are asking. At the end of his session, we will allow all to unmute their video for the group pictures and screenshot. And feedback link will be given after fifth session only. Don't put any questions, don't asking us through chat that when feedback link will be given, like that. So with these few words, let me welcome you all and let me invite Professor Chakrabarti to take over the session and deliver his valuable and thought-provoking speech to enlighten our audience. So let me hand over the floor to Professor Chakrabarti. Professor Chakrabarti, please, now floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Babu, a very good morning to all of you. And good morning and others who are there attending this lecture. At the very outset, I must thank my university for giving this rare opportunity of representing university. It's a big thing. Our Honorable Vice and all other people. And definitely I must thank Dr. Nimai Chand Saha, our respected and beloved librarian and respected and beloved friend. So for giving me this very rare opportunity, university, which is, a great university. I'm really thrilled to be a part of this university. So with this, and I thank all other people who are there and organizing this this webinar. So with this, I start. Suppose I have 15 minutes time. So I'm putting my timer. I am trying to maintain I shall try to maintain my time. And as you see from my first slide, my topic is the condition of the informal sector in India, some post-COVID exigencies, a Gandhian perspective. So many of you must be wondering that informal sector, COVID, Gandhi, how am I mixing these seemingly disparate, seemingly different ideas, conceptions, historical junctures. So let us try to understand. First of all, as I start, this is a collaborative one, and it is in progress, as I have written here, and we'll be presenting some tentative reflections. And we are writing actually. The references are here itself, and there are other references inside the PowerPoint. And we are trying actually to contribute to different sets. So with this, we are actually writing certain papers and writing books against invitations. So this is a tentative thing. It is our work. It's not my work. So it's our work, a collective work that I'm going to present. It's a work in progress. So let us go to the first thing, the focus of discussion, today's discussion. First of all, we will set the stage with Gandhiji's ideas on economic progress, very briefly, with a very narrow perspective from our own perspective. Not the framework, the wide framework that Gandhi had a fantastic. When I was a student, a research scholar, No, it was not my university, in a different, very renowned institution in southern India. I discovered, unfortunately, at a very late age, that is starting my research, not before that there are so many volumes. I can remember, so far as I can remember, 80 volumes of work by Gandhi. 80 volumes. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor is a man of action, but 80 volumes of written material as well. It's on a person like me. It's absolutely on. So Gandhiji's idea is a very specific part we will present. And in that context, we will discuss how it is relevant in the context of the informal sector of India. That is how informal sector, we can look at informal sector of India with the kaleidoscope, with the telescope or something, using the Gandhian perspective that we receive from past writings. So that's the first part. And the second part is, if we really, that is kind of assertion, that if we really accept some of his basic proposals that we find when we are studying Gandhi, actually, we are studying, it's a work in progress. So if we really accept some of his basic positions, we must have certain serious course corrections for our economy. If Gandhi is not just a portrait, it's not a photograph in our room, and if he really lives here, if we want to leave him here, then we have to think about Indian economy, and there are certain course corrections that we feel are extremely necessary. We present some tentative thoughts in this direction, and it's exceptionally, especially true in the present post-COVID context. And I am reminded of this, the opening paragraph of The Tale of Two Cities. It's the worst of times, it is the best of times. It was actually, it is the best of times, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So it is the worst of times, it may be the best of times. However, it's fantastic political discourse and political practice, huge, which may not always be consistent with his economic. There's a caveat. So, but we will not go to that. There will be, and for that, I found volumes actually are there. I'm a petty person. Understanding, you can go to this Ram Chandra Guho kind of interview, and at the back of it, a book, 2 volumes of on this not so always consistent political and economic ideas or behaviors or practices. So how relevant for the informal sector? It's peculiar. Informal sector and Gandhi, which started Gandhi's quote. Industrialism is going to be a curse for mankind. Industrialism depends entirely on your capacity to explore foreign markets and capacity to exploit your people, and many few other things are there. This exploit is very important term. So industrialism, he's using the term industrialism. What is that? As I understand, Gandhi is for academic purpose. Gandhi is rejecting an all-pervading heavy industrialization model that we had and we are having. We say maybe industry, that is industrialization means incorporating services to some extent. Everything is similar. Heavy industrialization model that operates through exploitation using modern machines, and marginalization via competition. So not only people, Gandhi, modern machines exploit Gandhi. Oof. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. So not masses, but also through expansion of industrialization, it is displacing the people, the indigenous population engaged in indigenous cultural activities, non-agricultural activities. And that's why marginalization and exploitation. He is not using the term marginalization, but it seems if you read that he's actually using today's language, it is marginalization. Via competition he's talking about. So that is a very important aspect, that he is actually rejecting industrialism. The obvious question arises, and that is a general perception actually, unfortunately, that he is against all machinery, because he is telling machinery, machines, modern machines are exploiting people, are replacing people from their erstwhile traditional activity. So is he against machinery, all machinery? That is a general perception, misperception. Gandhi replies, my answer is emphatically no. Not against all machines, simple tools and instruments, and such machinery that saves individual labor and lightens the burden on the millions, I should welcome. So it's not only simple tools and instruments and such machinery that saves individual burden on the millions, I should welcome, he's telling. Why is young India? So, thus, Gandhi is actually welcome. As you read Gandhi, you find endogenously evolving petty machine. It's actually, you can say, knowledge, manners, helping the millions of petty producers, today's context, petty producers, the informal sector, to survive. There is ample evidence that he is actually talking about survival, use, not for, in that sense, commerce is not concern. First, you survive. Survival of the vast majority of the countrymen is the fundamental thing. People engage in labor. There is a huge actual unemployment. So, first of all, the whole population should be engaged in labor, work, do some contribute in the national economy. Society from a specific perspective, that everyone is participating is in this fantastic creative activity. So millions of petty producers to survive. So Gandhi for today's informal sector. Still, there might be some concerns. So a digression I have just put a few minutes back. My friend, my co-author, actually, collaborator, actually raised a question that you should be clear about this. Otherwise, people might be misled by your presentation. So I added this just a few minutes back. So digression from a historical perspective. Old Adi means something very old. We'll see it, and if you read Gandhi, it will be clear. Rather, discursive framework. From today's, so I'm quoting, from today's vantage point, Gandhi is a metaphor for indigenous technology and production methods than informal sector. It implies the usage of the forces of production, means of production, technology, skills, abilities, etc., that people can lay their hands on through their knowledge system or lokovidya. The means of, I mentioned, survival, subsistence. So I'm quoting from, you can have this reference. So it's Khadi is actually a metaphor for indigenous technology and production methods. Not only that it also means lokovidya, and not only that, it means actually you are producing your subsistence. You are not an exploiter. You are not a parasite. And you are doing something. You are not unemployed. You are not a vagabond. Nomad. First of all, Indians have to realize that. he welcoming petty production or if he is here, our concern, our understanding is that he would have welcomed informal sector. Build non-violence on a factory civilization that we have been doing not only in India, the globe. You cannot build non-violence. Factory civilization is founded on exploitation, and exploitation is the essence of violence. We have seen earlier industrialism, exploitation, so rejecting industrialism. So factory civilization is a nice word, factory civilization. It's based on exploitation, founded, grounded, sourced on exploitation, and exploitation is the essence of violence. So non-violence is not in the field of politics only, it's in the field of economics. If you exploit, you are actually committing violence. In Amartya Sen's framework, maybe it's negative freedom. That is negative answer. So you are actually into the domain of unfreedom. Civilization. So what we have is something that's maybe he's telling something. The factory civilization is creating exploitation, further exploitation. Exploitation is the grounding of factory civilization on the one hand, and to violence, and violence is the framework on which you do exploitation. So contrarily, what he is telling is something else. Why is it petty production? He's rejecting factory civilization and why? A humanitarian industrial policy. Oriented industrial policy. Intensive industrial policy, not modern industrial policy. A humanitarian industrial policy for India means to me, to Gandhi, I'm quoting Gandhi, a glorified revival, just revival. Spinning, a metaphor for petty production, I have mentioned. For through it alone, terrorism, which is blighting the lives of millions, be immediately removed. First of all, this is necessary that everyone is engaged and creating contribution, participating in society. Following Sen, you can say, ability to be able to take part in your society shameless. That is one of the functionings. Capability, if you follow capability approach, one of the functionings of Professor Sen, to be able to take part in social, economic, political, etc., life shameless. So first of all, it has to be there. So policy, industry should be like that. Everyone is there, is participating in society shamelessly. Create an environment of millions, and at this moment, maybe billions, if you talk about global south. Billions of people feel that I can participate in my society shamelessly. If I go to Sen, and once again, it's may after be added. Don't worry. Increase the productive capacity of the country. You would say, oh, there is no surplus. Shall we be there only at the level of 1947? And the popular tea shop, pawn shop discussion goes around like this. Everything thereafter be added so as to increase the productive capacity of the country. But how? We'll come to that a bit. I will just try to raise interest because I am a student here actually. I'm presenting before you, maybe my audience. So I'm a student, I'm learning. So what is the framework? Basically, he is telling that, look, if you have development of the informal endogenously, a proper integrated comprehensive development of industrial informal sector, basically will humanitarian industrial policy. That means because that can absorb people. Already it's absorbing a amount of people, number of people. We'll see in a moment. I don't know. I have 20 people. However, very unfortunately, his country had embarked, and also unfortunately, I would say, is moving still, not only his country, but the global south, is moving along a path of building factory civilization. It in efficiency from economics would immediately understand what I'm trying to say. In pursuit of efficiency, growth, abundance, not survival or subsistence, step by step develop. Rather, initially go for a big bang, abundance and power. Gandhi hates this power. This was happening, this is happening, factory civilization. What has happened to his metaphorical charkha? Where have all the flowers gone? Metaphorical charkha. Millions, the informal sector, the today's informal sector. How the how are they doing after years? So, to some technical things, I'm sorry, non-technical, rest of the presentation would be, I've tried to be as simple as possible. Unfortunately, I have just 26 minutes. Share formal employment in non-agriculture, of informal employment in total employment across countries. Don't look at, just look at the bars. And if you look at the countries also, you would understand many things. I would make things simpler. So this is your Asia, Africa, Latin America, and there is high prevalence of informal, non-agricultural. Agriculture is almost everywhere in the global south informal. So we're leaving it as it's non-agricultural. And Asia and Latin America is huge, and Africa also huge. East Europe is less. And it's ILO data 2030. So where is India? And largest, 84.3%. And what blue and dark blue and light blue? The light blue thing is informal sector, and dark blue is informal employment in the formal sector, like the contractual worker, the bodily worker, the casual worker in the formal sector, like institutions like universities, etc. Blue part is also very large in India. So Gandhi is still relevant. We should go back to him again and again, because he is talking about millions who can actually do a magic using their own indigenous technologies, hands, brains, and evolve. Sector employment is not only very large in India, it is expanding over. These are across states. Over two time periods, 99, 2000, 2010, 11. We have a little later some more data also. That is close to, that is 2015, 16, something like that. It's old, but still we'll find that everywhere, rural and urban, informal sector employment is expanding. So it's the informal sector, the light blue part, focusing, it's expanding the sector. That is basically, you can metaphorically, the Chorkha people. Definitely. So it's increasing. And now we go to, I will not go through the table. I will not burden you too much. Sectors of India over time, 99, 2000, 2010, 11, and 15, 16. What you find, it is agriculture. And how many people were engaged and are engaged? 24 crore roughly. 22 crore, 20 crore. That is, despite increase in population, agricultural dependence. Informal sector is this informal sector, its dependence is rising. That is petty production, petty manufacturing, like producing across Shantiniketan, around Shantiniketan, 78, 79 or 80 forging and fabrication units producing our grills, iron gates, iron shutters, iron almiras, petty units. These are better off units, of course. And fantastic number of people engaged there even today, despite erosion across India. Unfortunately or fortunately, it's increasing. So it was, compared to agriculture, it's small, but it's increasing. And in that, this red one, the second, the third column, informal self-employment, that is, there is no hired labor. And that is also very large. And I jump to this column, the urban informal urban self-employment, that is also large. And these are areas where these are informal sectors where they are using labor. So there are three things: agriculture, part of informal sector, a very part of informal sector, that informal sector that is self-employment based. There is no self-employment. Not mean that I'm alone. I may be having beside me my nephew, my niece, my son, my daughter, who is helping me, my wife maybe, who is helping me, my in-laws maybe helping labor. So this is self-employment, and that is the most biggest part in rural and urban, and rural is fantastic, very large. And there is another part, larger informal units who are employing labor. I'm not going into the details, you don't have to go into that. But if you look at organized manufacturing, like Durgapur steel plant, like you have Maruti, Suzuki, like Tata, this motor company. These are organized manufacturing, private and public. How small it is. Having so much of industrialism, civilization. It is around 1 crore. And look at the informal sector. It is 10 times. It is almost 10 times. Or if it is not 10 times, it's 7 times, 8 times. Even a hype of industrialism following Gandhi and factory civilization, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. In rural self-employment, and self-employment within that is extremely big. So Gandhi is relevant. He is there looking at us. And this others, you may say it's big. But it's within this, actually, there is a huge thing. Huge thing. I do not know why so many people from here calling me. Am I audible? Am I audible? Am I audible? No. Thank you. I do not know any professors from here. Maybe something serious. Please pardon me. You are. Okay. Okay. My co-author is also. Okay. So.
Hello. Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you, Nima. Thank you. So, the point is that, and others in construction, climb the Ara in Bengal, I do not, the construction structure, and die. They are a large part of this. But I'm not going into that because we are talking about informal sector, because those are not always informal sector. Informal employment. Today I'm not going into that because it's a general lecture. The point is that, so this is a scenario that urban informal self-employment segment is large, and we know farmers are mostly small and marginal, who mainly use own labor. So in agriculture also it's own labor, self-employed. Little hired labor, maybe there are various categories. So basically, largest part of India, overwhelming majority of working people in India are self-employed. I'm employing my wife, my niece, my nephew, my daughter, my father, my mother, and we are organizing production and contributing. This chart also may be produced like this. and Visva-Bharati cooperative. So the rural informal self-employment segment is large, and we know farmers are mostly small and marginal who are also using own labor, hence petty self-employment is very large even today. Unfortunately, what it's 17, 18, so it is partial like water, joler moto soja. Otherwise, it's per capita, gross value added, gross value added per capita. My contribution, it's my contribution in the production process. And individuals per capita, look at the scenario. It is 17, 18 prices, as close as possible we try to do. It is our authors. It's difficult to get all this data and pull it. Not so easy. So now, 2000, and what is happening? Agriculture, this is the scenario. Per annum, an individual's contribution. You can think more or less an individual is getting on an average is getting annual. Informal sector is, if you come to 10, 11, agriculture. And we know, the economics people know that there is a big theory, that rather this is the theory we teach in class. Go out of agriculture and they should go to modern industry that organized manufacturing, etc. Here also I have organized manufacturing data. No, I have not. Others I have put very well organized manufacturing. Oh, I'm sorry. If had it been there, you would have been surprised. It is fantastic. It's 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs or something. Unfortunately, I did it last night. I forgot. Sorry, those who want, I can immediately send away. So the point is, and if you look at just others, it's 2 lakhs, 6 lakhs, 7 lakhs. And here it's 57,000, 72,000 today's prices. 87,000, it's lower than agriculture. And self-employment, people start crying. And pardon me, the Charkha people. The Charkha, I'm sorry, I'm using this term. Will start crying. 38, 46, and we have done all different kind of studies going inside this whole data, and it's horrible. Put a lot of pain on you. You may start crying. And even urban informal, like say in front of our department, Tonga and other people. These are these people. And manufacturers talking about. And these are maybe the sort of people, the handloom, and many informal units, and the people who are traders, the small traders who sit with a jhaka beside this jury cane pot beside the highway window, some service to a nation. I'm sorry. So miserable condition, the condition of rural-urban self, be it farm or non-farm. Miserable. So acute vulnerability of Bharat. While India has prospered, yes, I'm using Geo, smartphone, laptop, maybe. But actually we can. Acute, while India has prospered. So obviously COVID and lockdown, we are going to the next thing. COVID and lockdown. So there was a population which was stooped down. Gandhi. So this is the scenario. Gandhi is maybe shouting at them. Listen, they are dumb. They cannot speak. They cannot hear. They cannot listen. They cannot understand. In that boom, the COVID comes and the lockdown. And there are certain studies, just quickly, a study from Ajin University. While 25% households did not have enough money just after the COVID, they were having telephonic service for 5,000. Small population, but across India, while 25% of farmer households did not have enough more than a week's essentials, 66% of farmer households reported consuming less food than before the lockdown. The non-agricultural working population, mostly our informal sector mostly is much higher. 40% is telling that we don't have enough money to buy one week's essentials, more than 1 week's essentials. And 80% have mentioned that we have reduced our consumption. Study by two people, young people, Natsimunji, and his study is from International Growth Center from London and other collaborators. An astounding 43 crore workers, which is 93.4% of the workforce, roughly 50 crore, is affected by the lockdown. Further, a mere 3. This is India-based data. They have used the whole India and calculated it using all sorts of parameters. They have tried to reach at this point. Further, a mere 3.5%, I belong to this, 3.5% of the Indian population who can survive more than 8 weeks, 2 months without work. I'm working, but actually I'm not going to my university under lockdown and can be called secure. Otherwise, so it's 96.5% is insecure. Big bang for the informal, for the Indian population, for the global South, and for the informal sector for today's lecture. A real threat of disintegration. The petty firm and especially the non-farm informal sector face a credible threat of disintegration. Please listen carefully. Lockdown, shift of consumers' preference toward. No, don't go to market. Rather, you do some online transactions, Amazon, Flipkart, Walmart, and Snapdeal, and so many other things, local and due to shift of global capital's preference towards vertical integration. This is very important. Global capital has found, it has been proved through the lockdown that it is labor which is running this globe, even today, 2020. Like our Hercules, the labor, it's not lockdown and you are finished. And so capital, big capital is trying to move out of these countries where it has spread its production. Like Microsoft input and the production is taking place in India. Nike, the shoe is being produced in Mehtaburuj in Kolkata, maybe. Disintegration is getting reversed. That is the global trend. The researchers are telling that capital is rewinding itself, not going back to the Fordist system, old Fordist system. Fordism, that is vertical integration. Not fully that, but some kind of reallocation, and that will actually give a sharp blow to informal sector. Those something from those global production, that is called global production chain, global value chain. And there is tendency for automation because labor is running the globe. And we have found that if you stop the economy, unfortunately, you have to stop the economy, you are finished. So let us automate so that robot lockdown, we can produce. But how can we sell? That is a different issue. Today, I will not go into that. That is also part of it. This also, but we will not present it here. So it's real threat of disintegration of the informal sector. Our position in context. Perhaps this threat of devastation has given us a second chance, post-independence, to think for fundamental course correction. I mentioned in the beginning of the lecture presentation, for the vicariously surviving informal sector of India. Once again, we can re-invoke Gandhi. We can re-invoke Gandhi. We can bring down. You'd love to come down. Livelihood of labor, it is extremely important from Gandhi, have to be secure. Not only because it is a basic responsibility of the state, but more importantly, it is a moral and natural right of the toiling multitude who actually hold this globe like Hercules. We have to take the second chance. That is our prayer, our appeal to the global South. Going back to that. If we can, how do you do that? I am left 8 minutes. Can I take another 2-3 minutes extra? Please, just give me 2-3 minutes extra, because it is now 11:45. See how.
Yeah.
If we can conceive.
Saumya, just a minute, you can go ahead for 15 minutes, no issue. You can go 15 minutes, no issue.
Okay. If we can conceive a picture, so what Gandhi is telling, so I have bringing back Gandhi from the photograph. Please give us strength.
এই তলা থেকে
We
যেগুলো
can conceive
শক্ত
a
সেগুলো
picture
তলা দিও।
of, I drop a new term, cooperation. We shall find that there would be no need of support from the lifeless machine. Say, oh, so many people, informal sector. Millions, billions of people, if you talk about global. How can you improve them? You need investments, and there lies the problem. Good or bad, I don't know. You are anti-Gandhian. Investment. What Gandhi? That is investment in what? Human capital. When you are talking about investment, it's definitely human capital is also there. Primarily a capital, that is physical capital, industrialism, machines, modern machines, and definitely you don't invest. I'm not telling me. If you can conceive a picture, I'm not telling that somebody will definitely do that. This is our hunch. This is our critique. If we can conceive a picture of cooperation, we shall find that there would be no need of support from the lifeless machine. Instead of making the greatest use of machinery, we shall be able to do with the least use thereof. That's machinery's use. And therein lies the real security. We talk about security nowadays. Self-security, Atmoshok, and self-protection of society. So you don't need for big capital. You don't need investments for big capital goods, and you have to give all machines to the informal sector. You have to all put them together in a factory. It's not like that. Security, self-protection lies in cooperation. Real planning in the best utilization of the whole manpower of India. And even today it's relevant. You just think crores of people. And how many people are there in Visva-Bharati and Durgapur steel plant and Bhilai steel plant and Bharat Heavy Electricals and all these blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. It's not an informal one. From the perspective of informal sector, these babus are only few, minuscule. Whole manpower you can use, you can produce miracle. That's at least saying that. It is. So we are run strategy for this. Once again, we have got some. It is the best of times, unfortunately, maybe in the worst of times. The situation calls for a long-run strategy of forming new and inducing old clusters. Cluster is not cooperative. He's talking about cluster 2020. That is not foolish talk, first of all. But I'm not talking about cluster. Cooperative, it's cluster. And there is a fundamental difference. I'll come to that. Clusters of informal forms, physical clusters for manufacturing, Katipada cluster in 500 years old, like Dhoniya Khali cluster, like Asansol cluster, thousands of petty manufacturing, like Kanpur clusters in Kanpur, clusters across India, hundreds of thousands of clusters, like Sialkot cluster of Caesars and very famous Caesars and Naib medical that practice, medical practice, that is in operations, etc. So clusters could act as Benares cluster, Banarasi, and virtual clustering for services through app. If question comes, I'll discuss. Otherwise, I'll speak. Virtual clustering for services, like Kirana shops in my locality, Andrewspolli West, are integrated through an app, and I get the app. And it's not Reliance is doing this, or Amazon is doing this, or Walmart is doing this. Our government, our people can do that. Clusters could act as collectives, having synergic effects. Synergic means, from science, very well they know 2 + 2 is greater than 4. As also scale effects. From economics, you know, if you have large advantages, via sharing of tangible space, machines, labor, resources, knowledge, idea, and by collective tapping of large markets. As a whole, they tap large markets, despite being governed by the principles of private ownership, not corporate. So it's clusterization of disparate informal sector that we are proposing. Clusters, promote them, hundreds of thousands of clusters. Don't please, it is not lip service, serious promotion of clusters. Otherwise, they are going to die. This is the second chance we have got. Private ownership. And if not clustered, try to make them clustered, because you are making a self inviting factories. Why don't you invite in clusters petty industries? Why don't you invite them? Come, give them electricity, give them free water, give them medical facilities, educational facilities, dwelling places, marketing spot. So in a whole cluster, you have all these facilities so that they can go en masse, keeping private ownership intact. I'm not telling doing away with, and it's Gandhian. I'm not talking about doing away with snatching from them private ownership. I'm telling them, reallocate them, or who are allocated, thousands, promote them. That is, and millions, they are millions, they are in millions. Further clusters could offer the tiny enterprises, divided we fall, united we stand, and aid in handling their conflict complementarities with global capital. And if you read Gandhi, you'd find something like this. We are smelling, maybe we are fools, then please correct us. For clusters could offer the tiny enterprises an aid in handling their conflicts and complementarities. Global capital. And how do we negotiate with them? There are conflicts, we mentioned, exploitation, marginalization, threat of devastation, marginalization, and there are complementarities. They are not complementary. Shoe is being produced, is being mended in Metia Buruj in Kolkata. Perhaps I'm not wrong, at least a bit old data, but a single pair of shoes is not produced by Nike in any in-house factory. All decentralized production, global dispersion of value chain, globally dispersed production structure. So big capital can have some benefits from them, but in bargain, you need to have bargain. And if you're a shoeshine boy, an individual sitting and shivering in Bolpur station and looking at your babu, you don't have any bargaining power, but you are clustered as much as possible. If you are a service, then through app or something like that, we can deliver it. We can think. But we should reinvoke. Give Gandhi a chance, a second chance. Maybe. This is from a Dept. Articles you find from Cambridge Journal of Economics. This, if you go, there is a virtual issue, 40 years virtual issue, fantastic articles that have been published in Cambridge Journal of Economics in the last years. So what we're talking about is clusterism. Contrary to industrialism, which Gandhi rejected. And this is an economic society we are talking about, like industrialism, capital, not using capitalism, he is also using capitalism. Clusterism, industrialism. Yes, tribals. They are also part of our informal sector, extended informal sector. We don't see them. They are the self-employed in our data. They are the majority of the self-employed people. Thus, we are speaking of clusterism, contrary to industrialism, an economic society that revolves around hundreds of thousands of clusters. And this clusterism means, Gandhi is using this many a times, not this way. And our Honorable Vice Chancellor has also used something like this. And we are actually trying to promote that. Economy of the masses, by the masses, for the masses. That is pitted against industrialism, capitalism, exploitation, and following Gandhi violence. And why do we do that? As a step towards building an equitable, as a step, another thing that is the end of the journey. We build some clusters, go to sleep. Once again, Garland Gandhi over there. Oh. As a step towards building an equitable, human and self-governed world beyond the hegemony of capital. This context, capital maybe something else also. Earlier, that time it was not only capital, but also feudal system, feudal power. That step towards that. Of the masses, by the masses, for the masses, and it's mass production. Again and again, Gandhi is raising this question. Don't you call it mass production? I'm adding with that you cluster them, otherwise they won't survive. They are actually in somebody else. And this is an endless endeavor. Step towards. And it's an endeavor. Go on and on and on, because we are not talking about only cluster. Industrialism, capitalism, exploitation as a system, violence as a system. So it's building system, an endless endeavor out of the misery and conflict of inequality, misery and conflict of inequality. If cooperation plus is allowed to prevail in the religion of it is towards economists. Economists, actually. Gandhi, ethics and economics are not different for him. Unfortunately, when Amartya Sen got Nobel Prize, that Sen brought ethics to economics. So this implies that from economics, ethics went away. Ethics, economics, or economics abandoned ethics, I do not know. But this is religion of economics. The whole concept of economics. Unity is allowed to prevail. Cooperation is allowed to prevail. Then only man can rise out of misery and conflict of inequality. Of cooperation. Ownership cluster. Just this much of difference. Why? If question comes, I may deliver a little bit. On the so vast a scale, a country like India, a globe like our Mother Earth, so vast a scale will involve endless toil in experiment. And none other than Tagore, our Rabindranath, our Gurudev is telling that it's endless. Toil in experiment and failure before it may become an accomplished fact. So it's an endless endeavor. On and on and on, because you have to deal with the minds of the people ultimately. People have to think, oh, if I fellow citizen, which is social distancing is actually taking away from us social cohesion. And that's why everyone in the administration and everywhere, the doctors, administrators are every time telling, don't go away. Social distancing does not mean that you are distancing yourself from the society. Physical distancing is needed. Social distancing is not. So it's a big thing you have to actually take in. I would add here, people might be embarrassed a bit. That it's not only and Gandhi who have thought about this. Many people have actually, and you know, most of you know why I'm taking embarrassment. As soon as I drop the name of China, people tell now, oh, China, don't tell me. But it's not like that. We have to learn from everyone. If you read Mao Zedong, you'd find paragraphs after paragraphs. I pick one beautiful paragraph. You'd be surprised. And if I don't say it's Mao, you'd be surprised. You'd find that it's somebody else. That whatever is Chinese for thousands of years, you cannot destroy them. You have to rebuild, rehabilitate them, rebuild them, because the revolution may have destroyed, they may have putting them in the verge of into the verge of destruction. So rebuild them, he's telling, and appealing, and it's very nice. And today, Chinese products, good Chinese products, not the bad ones. Most of them are produced from the town and village enterprises, and these town and village enterprises are the fallouts of that policy. So if you build clusters, you can also imbibe your so-called growth, productivity, improvement, progress, that is so-called technical in terms of following from the perspective of it. Because you can endogenously develop technology, endogenously develop knowledge. And nowadays, United Nations is using that is intangible cultural heritage. They are funding hugely on projects. You can find, you go to United Nations websites, you find, especially for the global south, not only that, for the global north also, but especially for the global south, but how these clusters, millions of clusters and people are surviving on intangible cultural heritage. So this is becoming a reality. And maybe knowingly or unknowingly, we are reinvoking our revenue. With this, I stop. Thank you.
So, thank you, Professor Chakrabarti, for your illuminating, thought-provoking lecture, which is basically based on grounds reality. So let me just quickly pick up 2-3 questions from the chat box to
Yes.
answer you by sir. First question.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Professor Chakrabarti, one question from Nikhil Kumar Mondal. Is there any relation between microfinance and self-employment within bracket rural and urban in the formal sector? If yes or not, please explain. May I repeat? Is there any relation? Is there any relation between microfinance and self-employment within bracket rural and urban in the informal sector? If yes or not, please explain.
Yes. Actually, it's a very good question from our Hilda, perhaps. This is actually, I take one or two. What did we do? We went for industrialism. We that way deeply gone ago. industrialism, building factory civilization. But suddenly, we found during 1960s and especially 1980s, and the path-breaking paper is development, which was one of the papers for he got Nobel Prize. One of the papers. So that is that during this industrialism, I'm using Gandhian words. Through this, we could not actually develop. Industrialism do its business. Capitalists do its business separately. Let us focus separately on this informal sector, these poor people, these outsiders. And we cannot bring these outsiders into the industrialism. They are outsiders permanently. They are pushed away, cast away. They are in terms I'm using from the literature. It cannot be brought. Unfortunately, Gandhi is right. Rather, industrialism is pushing them farther and farther. The culture is expanding. So we cannot bring them back. What we can do, we can manage them. We can manage their poverty. We can manage unequal position. We can manage their health, manage their education. So this microfinance is actually this industrialism going towards this outsider management, and that's why it is called, the paradigm is called 1970 onwards, the departure, that paradigm is called development management. Manifestations, institutional features. I'm not going into all this. It's a comprehensive paradigm. You need to change institutional features. They would say that you have to make market more inclusive so that they can be rehabilitated in the age-worth box for the economist people. In the market, they are bringing them back to market so that they can mend the shoe, they can produce something, they can make tea for me, the insider. And so it is actually a program of development. And Gandhi is not telling that. Gandhi is not managing the people. People are them. Development lies there. Society is there. Civilization lies there. Here we go. So it's just development management and nothing else. Thank you. Please, if there is any question.
Yeah. One more question from Usnesh Guha. That is Somo said, the pandemic and lockdown has directed a setback to tribal and forest-based economy. Through which strategies can Gandhian perspective tackle the restructuring or turn around of the above mentioned sectors? Can I repeat?
Please.
Yeah. The pandemic and lockdown has directed a setback to tribal and forest-based economy. Through which strategy can Gandhian perspective tackle the restructuring or turn around of the above mentioned sectors? Please.
Actually, there are two types of, we economists always have a bad tendency to formulate things. Let us formulate. There are two types of tribal economy. One type of tribal economy is around Shantiniketan. I do not know whether you know Shantiniketan or not. People are benefited in one way or the other through the activities of Bolpur Shantiniketan. So there are complementarities between the tribal economy, if you call it model, we do modeling, unfortunately. Good benefits also, some benefits. Some complementarity. But there is another tribal economy, and that is fantastic large. We can't see them. And for them, you have to walk through India, like Vivekananda, like Gandhi. You have to walk through with the danda, metaphors actually. So, the violence, I do not know whether you have seen a fantastic sculpture, something for wage. So, a big tribal, larger, who have nothing to do with this. They are not benefited. They are, and that is more of Gandhian focus, more of object of Gandhian focus. So if you put the better of tribal because of this pandemic, why? Because the pandemic has stopped the supply chain and the demand network. They are producing something, the away, taken, absorbing, getting absorbed in the modern economy, so-called industrial economy, industrialism. So products are not being absorbed through demand and supply. They are also not getting supply. The supply chains are snapped, the demand networks are snapped. So they are suffering. This is the better off. For the better off economy, you have to provide them immediately cash, I would say. I have not gone through that debate, but if question comes, why cash will not generate, always will not generate inflation. Especially it's true for informal sector. If question that it's not true for informal sector employment, that if you give them cash, immediately there will be inflation. It's wrong understanding of informal sector. The other part of tribal economy is the far off area, who are suffering almost on themselves. Following Kurlan's terminology, the surplus population. Following Thataru, we are talking about Thataru, or our Nabarun Bhattacharya's terminology, they are Thataru, outsiders. Actually, I think they have not been affected so badly through this pandemic because they are running their own economy. And that's why the data is telling also like that. Urban slum people, the peri-urban slum people, the peri-urban marginalized people. At least up to this point. Now with the pandemic spreads, as we find, I do not know, there might be. You have to provide immediately cash. First food, then cash, then clusterization. It's a long run thing. It's essential, and I can discuss, it's a pure economics thing, why informal sector cash is not that a problem. So that is my humble submission. These questions are very...
Yeah. Next, one more questions from Saswata
Yes,
Bhattacharya.
Okay.
We have seen Gandhi was a great critic of the Western capitalism. Instead, he wanted self-sufficient village economy. It's ethical, but how much it is possible in most liberalization era? Number one. Number two, can we say that COVID-19 has brought a break in capitalism? May I repeat? Yeah.
Brought up,
Brought a break in capitalism.
Okay.
Let me repeat. We have
Yes.
seen Gandhi was a great critic of the Western capitalism. Instead, he wanted self-sufficient village economy. It's ethical, but how much it is possible in post-liberalization era? And can we say that COVID-19 has brought a break in capitalism? Please.
First of all, here lies a great debate between Tagore and Gandhi. Even if understanding is not as much as I understand Gandhi, the understanding is not right. It is a common understanding which I myself had 10 years back or 20 years back. Gandhi, I actually have the quotations also. I have quotations. Gandhi is telling something like this. First, let them produce whatever they can use. First, they do something. There is abundant labor, nothing to do. Vagabond population, nothing to eat, miserable condition. First, they should do something, take part in society shamelessly, in broad economic, social, political society. So, first of all, economic and social society, socially, in the local society. And then he is telling, even now, I cannot remember so many things. That's my problem. But still faintly I can remember. He's telling if there is a surplus, then they will go outside. Point is that you don't produce something for the city, your raw material, you don't produce for the city, and then buy and give it to city and buy. Don't do that. So that is the just allow me. I'm trying. Just allow me 1 minute. No. I do not know whether I should have do this year. Just give me 1 minute. I may find something. Planning consists in the best utilization of the whole manpower of India. I did not present the whole point. And the distribution of raw products of India. From that. Am I audible?
Some noise is coming. Yeah.
And the distribution of the raw products of India in her numerous villages, instead of sending them outside and reproducing finished articles at fabulous prices. Let me tell you one thing. Revival of industries from the journal Horizon, end of life. The revival of the village is possible only when it is no more exploited. No more exploited. Point is exploitation. This is the problem of technology. Industrialization on a mass scale will necessarily lead to passive or active exploitation of the villages as problems of competition and marketing continue. Therefore, we have to consider from the village being self-contained, manufacturing mainly for use, mainly. So, village industries, they have no objection to villagers using even the modern field and tools that they can make and can afford to use. Only they should not be used as a means of exploitation of others. So it's not, definitely would not be against exchange. The first understanding is dignity of labor has to be restored. Economic society. And produce are not parasites, and are not being exploited. I'm not a parasite, I'm not being exploited. First thing is that. And after restoring the dignity of labor, you produce, you have machines. You have machines. And then machine means what? Increasing productivity means what? Surplus. What do you do with the surplus? So it's false notion about it. And it's harmful. And my answer, and I have got many paragraphs like this. Globalization means what? Globalization in terms of capital, not in terms of the people of India. He is, in that sense, willing to have course correction, rearranging power. And question whether COVID has broken or something or affected. Yes, affected capitalism, but capitalism is very powerful. It is trying to reorganize itself. Reorganizing itself by using, I would say, not only economic powers, but also political powers. Political discourse is being created, generated, produced to handle this crisis. It's super powerful. And a very large part of the people within the fold of industrialism, unfortunately, or fortunately, I do not know, I would say from the people of Gandhi, unfortunately, is jobless either, or there is a big crowd who are actually flabbergasted by the halo of capital. It's not so easy that it's breaking down with COVID. It is not only having the shock by rearranging economics, but also generating different political discourses, different languages. Politics may be changing. And with that, so it's not that it's breaking the house of cards. I don't think so. It's very powerful. So you need to invoke again and again Gandhi and Rabindranath. Yes, please remember.
Yeah. So, Professor Chakrabarti, this is last and final questions of this session. I will not give you much pen. This is the last question from Suman Bhattacharya. Sir, how Gandhian perspective can save the strategic sectors in Indian economy? How Gandhian perspective can save the strategic sectors in Indian economy, please?
Would you allow me 1 or 2 minutes?
Yeah. You can.
If I just a minute, please. Just a minute. I'm trying. I can tell you now. Let us not. I can send all these things, and everyone knows actually. He is telling, yes, we need certain industries that will be fully controlled by state. And who is the state? And state is of the people, by the people, for them. The state is a custodian of people, and is equivocal that certain strategic industries are needed, and we need them, and it modern, and we need them. But if I read, I could have communicated the point actually in a better way, fantastic way. That he is telling that who is the state? The state is not something which is abstracted from people. It's of the people, by the people, for the people, using another great man's terminology. And this state is to the people. And this state will be maintaining on behalf of people. So he is, you Gandhi and you facet. And you add with that Tagore. And you must be very annoying. Add something from Mao Zedong as well. When he is debating with Stalin, Soviet path, it's not political debate I'm talking about. The fundamental debate, so far as Soviet is concerned, and Mao Zedong is fundamental. So read the book. So state Yeah, but our rooftop steel plant, or that is for the language. We are actually in Visva-Bharati say we are service providers. We are competition. So it's like we tell them, but it's not like this industry institutions across that. Gandhian perception is that state will be doing that on behalf of people. But I'm really feeling that emptiness that I cannot find out in the home. That is fantastic. Small piece actually. And all these things. I think. Okay, Nimai Babu. And obviously you read take over.
Noise at the yeah. So you say at the very last of this part, let me extend our heartfelt gratitude to our today's speaker, that is respected Professor Saumya Chakrabarti, for giving your valuable time and enlighten us with your thought-provoking, real life, based on ground reality speech. I think from the as as far as chat box is concerned, most of the participants, if not all, encourage the session is very good, informative, illuminative, wonderful presentation like that. So I am being an organizer, I am happy, and also like to share with you that this kind of presentation also makes us glorify about the topic. And also let me extend my deep regards to all the learned participants who are offering us this kind of congenial environment. And of course, let me invite you all to join in the next last and final session today, 3:30 p.m., which will be delivered by Professor Viswajit Rai from Department of Bengali. And links has been already sent to all of you. Once you leave this meeting and you'll go to your mailbox, you'll find the meeting of the next session. So with this, thank you all. And last but not least, let me request, please unmute your video so that my host will capture the group photo session or capture the screenshot or to record your presence and other things. Please, please and please unmute your video, not the audio, please. Yes, Madam Tiwari is also here. Yesterday she was a speaker and I found she is in the screen today's. So I have lucky enough and I'm lucky enough that we have two speakers in this single session. Yesterday Madam Harsha Tiwari was the speaker and today his beloved and respected guide Professor Saumya Chakrabarti is a speaker. So this is the diaspora of the Visva-Bharati where we are the students lying in the same platform, lying in the same boat. That's the Visva-Bharati, that's the legacy of Gurudev Tagore. I'm really happy to find you two in the same platform. Thank you, my colleague and friend Somoda, and our scholars, yesterday speaker Harsha Tiwari. Thank you. Ajay, chalo. And one thing, we have all this session till yesterday's, everything is uploaded in our Visva-Bharati Library Network's YouTube channel. So don't worry. And after half an hour, after completion of the recording of this current lecture, it will be uploaded in the Visva-Bharati Library Network's YouTube channel. You can search and you can visualize and you can share throughout the global level users so that our perception, thoughts of our Visva-Bharati fraternity on Gandhiji will be elaborated among the global level community. So please, you just subscribe it and make it popularize, share with India and abroad amongst the colleagues. So, have a nice lunch session by your own in the respective position.